You know that feeling when you're scrolling social media and you see something so deliberately provocative and inflammatory, your whole body tenses up. Your heart rate spikes. Your jaw clenches. Your fingers hover over the keyboard because someone is wrong on the internet. And you need to correct this shit right now. It's like that Star Trek episode where the aliens feed on negative emotions. So they keep creating conflict to generate more food. Except in this case, the aliens are content creators. The conflict, that's manufactured. And they're literally getting paid for your distress and your energy. 47,000 comments, all arguing, all enraged, all doing exactly what the poster wanted. That's not an accident. That's a business model. This is rage baiting, conversational selfie culture having an extinction burst because people are tuning out their performative bullshit. When audiences are tired of the show, the performers don't pack up and go home. They escalate. They scream louder. They say more extreme shit because their entire identity depends on your attention. And the algorithm is rewarding that tantrum. Last episode, we talked about the emotional immaturity epidemic, how rage bait is just emotional immaturity with an audience, how adults who never learned emotional regulation discovered they could monetize their tantrums. Today, we're going deeper into the machine. Welcome to Rage Against the Audacity. And today we're talking about how emotional immaturity became a revenue stream and what happens when your emotional labor tax funds someone's inability to grow up. If you're tired of feeling the rage economy, help us fight back by hitting like and subscribe. Leave a comment, something genuine, something human, because that's how we get content about awareness and critical thinking into the algorithm instead of just more outrage bait. We're calling this shit out so we can recognize it, change our mindset, and decide whether we want to keep playing games designed to destroy connection and critical thinking. Let's break this down. The rage baiting economy. Remember the last episode when we talked about emotional immaturity? How toddlers throw tantrums because they never learned emotional regulation? Rage baiting is what happens to those toddlers when they get smartphones and platforms and discover that their lifelong pattern of volatility can finally pay dividends. Let me break this down to what's actually happening here. Rage baiting is manufactured outrage engineered for profit. It's not like the authentic anger we talk about on this show. It's calculated provocation designed to trigger emotional responses from emotionally immature people who never developed the capacity to sit with discomfort. And it works because platforms have figured out that controversy keeps people engaged longer than compassion ever will. Outrage generates revenue. So, content creators, many of them emotionally stunted themselves, have learned to weaponize your emotional labor for clicks. When you see rage bait, what happens? You feel compelled to correct it. You defend people being attacked. You educate the willfully ignorant. You craft that comment carefully, managing your tone, investing your time, and your mental energy. You're doing emotional labor. And that emotionally immature asshole is screenshotting your engagement to show sponsors how much authentic interaction they're generating. Your distress is their currency. Your emotional labor is literally funding their refusal to grow up. Let that sink in. Remember the episode Conversational Selfie Culture? People who communicate not to connect but to perform, who turn every interaction into validation theater. Remember the viral provocateur from the last episode, the emotional immaturity epidemic. The one posting deliberately inflammatory truth bombs just to feel like they matter, just to feel like they exist in this world. Rage baiting is that pattern, but scaled up and monetized. These people don't want dialogue. They want a reaction. They're still that emotionally immature adult who learned in childhood that negative attention is better than no attention. Every comment you leave, every correction you make, you're the supporting cast in their performance. You're giving them exactly what they craved since they were 5 years old. Proof they exist, validation that they matter. But when people start recognizing the game and scrolling past, that's when the extinction burst happens. Looking back at our Extinction Burst two-part series, an extinction burst is what happens when a behavior that used to work suddenly stops working. When you set a boundary with someone who's used to you accommodating their dysfunction, they don't accept it. They escalate. They tantrum harder because their operating system depends on you giving in. Rage baiting is that tantrum at scale. People used to get attention with relatively normal content. But as audiences got smarter and started disengaging, creators had to escalate, make things hotter. The provocations got more deliberate. The content got more inflammatory. Not because they suddenly developed strong convictions, but because they're emotionally immature adults having an extinction burst against people tuning them out. And here's what makes this really insidious. The algorithm rewards the tantrum. In a normal extinction burst, the behavior eventually burns out. The toddler screaming in the grocery store gets exhausted and they nap it out. The family member melting down about your boundaries has to stop eventually, right? But on social media, the algorithm amplifies this tantrum. Every hateful comment, every shocked response, it all signals engaging content that should be shown to more people. The extinction burst doesn't extinguish it, it metastasizes it. That's why everything feels so much harder right now. You're in a collective extinction burst of emotionally immature people. And a lot of them are getting paid for it, whether it's in actual money, monetization, or it's in energy, your energy. In this week's Audacity Files, let me show you how emotional immaturity becomes a very lucrative business model. You guys may have heard this one. There was a woman at a playground in Minnesota, I think. She was caught on video screaming the N-word at black children. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, viciously, while their parents filmed her trying to document the incident for safety. This is emotional immaturity in its rawest form. An adult so stunted that she's having a racist tantrum at children. Zero capacity for emotional regulation. Zero self-reflection. Just pure, unfiltered volatility. The video goes viral, as videos like that do. The woman gets identified, loses her job. Standard consequences for behavior like that, right? Who wants a coworker who you know is going to run around screaming the N-word at children? But remember what we said about emotionally immature adults? They learn their tantrums get results. That playing victim works. That other people will manage their feelings for them if they refuse hard enough. Within 48 hours, she's on a media tour doing the victim thing. Cancel culture destroyed my life. I made a mistake in a moment of stress. The mob came for me for expressing my First Amendment rights. You know, the classic pattern. We talked about this in the previous episode. Provoke, deflect, play victim. She sets up a give, send, go. And I understand that, right? She sets up a Give, Send, Go because she needs to move. She started receiving threats in the community, and I can understand that. Give, Send, Go, if you don't know, is a Christian, I'm doing air quotes here. It's a Christian fundraising platform where, in my opinion, accountability goes to die. Hold on to your hats, folks. At last count, in August of 2025, I think, her campaign raised over $800,000. Every time I say that, I get like, what? Her campaign raised over $800,000 at last count in August of 2025. She screamed racial slurs at children on a playground and profited nearly $1 million from it because she tapped into an entire ecosystem of people who will reward emotional immaturity. So, again, don't get me wrong. Moving and needing to move, I can understand that. But making $800,000, turns out emotional immaturity is a viable side hustle if you can stomach the cognitive dissonance. Her racist outburst was the engagement spike. Her victimhood narrative was the follow-up content. The fundraiser was the monetization. She turned consequences into content and weaponized her emotional immaturity for profit. I guess don't hate the player, hate the game. That's audacity upon audacity upon audacity, folks. And this is a pattern. So let's keep it going. We have the Central Park Karen who called cops on a black bird watcher. She got a book deal. We have the coughing lady who deliberately coughed on cancer patients during COVID. Her crowdfunded legal defense exceeded her actual costs. The latest is a woman that yelled racial slurs at shoppers from behind the counter at her food court job. At last count, her Give, Send, Go was over $140,000, folks. These aren't people with controversial opinions they're brave enough to share. These are emotionally immature adults who discovered that their lifelong pattern of volatility can finally pay off. People are profiting from their worst behavior because we've built an entire economy that rewards emotional immaturity. And an economy that says, stay tuned, stay reactive, stay incapable of self-reflection and self-control, because that's what drives engagement. People funding these campaigns aren't accidentally supporting racism or violence. They're deliberately rewarding emotional immaturity because seeing people get upset is worth the money to them. Your anger is their entertainment. Your distress is their donation trigger. The emotional labor tax you've been paying your whole life to manage dysfunction is now being extracted at industrial scale to fund people who refuse to emotionally mature. This is emotional immaturity meets conversational selfie culture, meets extinction bursts, meets the attention economy. People will say or do the most heinous shit imaginable because controversy pays better than character. This connects to everything we've talked about on this podcast. It's the emotional immaturity epidemic monetized. Adults who never learned emotional regulation discovering they can get paid to stay exactly as stunted as they've always been. It's the emotional labor tax at scale. You're doing all the work of staying calm, fact-checking, educating, while they profit from their refusal to do any emotional work at all. It's anger privilege. Emotionally immature people get to express manufactured rage while you're tone police for your response to their behavior. And when you call it out, you become the problem. You're too sensitive. You can't take a joke. You need to lighten up. Don't be a snowflake. Sound familiar? They are weaponizing your emotional maturity, your empathy, your desire to educate, your commitment to truth, and using it to generate revenue. That's gaslighting as a business model. That's emotional immaturity as an economic strategy. Your anger at rage baiting is completely valid. This isn't you being too sensitive. This is you recognizing that you're being asked to compensate for someone's emotional immaturity while they profit from your effort. You're not required to tolerate deliberate provocation in the name of free speech. And you damn sure don't have to fund someone's refusal to grow the fuck up with your emotional labor. Here's what you're allowed to do. Disengage without guilt. Scrolling past isn't letting them win. It's refusing to pay the tax you never owed to subsidize someone else's stunted development. Block accounts that consistently rage bait for engagement. You're not obligated to expose yourself to weaponized emotional immaturity just because an algorithm thinks you'd interact with it. Recognize that some people are not arguing in good faith and refuse to debate with them. You can't educate someone whose paycheck depends on staying emotionally immature. Call out rage baiting without engaging with the content. This is obvious rage bait from an emotionally immature person, and moving on is a complete sentence. People creating rage bait are counting on your emotional maturity. They're weaponizing the exact qualities that make you a good person. Your self-awareness, capacity for regulation, your empathy, and using them to generate revenue while they stay exactly as stunted as they've always been. And dare I say, as comfortable as they've always been. It's not a you problem. It's a them problem. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but if I disengage from everything, aren't I just burying my head in the sand? Isn't that apathy? Nope. Nope. No, absolutely not. There's a difference between protecting yourself from manufactured outrage and staying informed about real issues. Here's how I think about it. When something major happens, political developments, policy changes, genuine crisis situations, I don't watch the rage bait coverage that's designed to keep me scrolling or my eyeballs on a TV screen in a state of panic. I find people who I trust that report with context and analysis, and I get the information I need and I move on. Because here's the thing. There's too much happening for us to be mired in constant despair. If you're burning all your energy on outrage theater created by emotionally immature people or people who use emotional reactivity as a business model, you'll be reactive or shut down when you actually need to act because you'll be paralyzed when it matters the most. Disengaging from rage bait isn't apathy. It's strategic energy management. Say that with me one more time. Strategic energy management. It's choosing to stay informed without being consumed. It's recognizing that you can't show up for what matters if you're depleted by emotionally immature people who discovered that their dysfunction can pay the bills. The algorithm rewards emotional immaturity. You don't have to. The rage baiting epidemic thrives because people still think, I need to correct this, or I need to educate here. But you can't educate someone whose business model is deliberate ignorance and emotional immaturity. You can't reason with someone performing unreasonableness for profit. You can't help someone grow who's getting rich off staying stunted with your emotional labor. Your frustration with rage baiting is the same exhaustion you feel everywhere else. The difference with rage baiters is you got a block button. Use it. Disengaging is not defeat. It's recognizing that some battles were never meant to be won. They were designed to be perpetual by people who never developed the capacity to handle conflict any other way. So protect your energy, guard your attention, curate your feed ruthlessly. And if you have to, put the phone down. You don't owe distress to anyone who is refusing to mature. If this episode helped you to see the pattern more clearly, if it gave you permission to stop participating in your own exploitation, leave a comment. Tell me what rage bait you're done engaging with. Share what clicked with you with others so we can build this community. Because every genuine, thoughtful comment from an emotionally mature person pushes back against the algorithm's preference for manufactured outrage. Every like and subscribe tells the platform that people want content about awareness and how to deal with it. And that we don't want content that's just anger from people who never learned to regulate themselves. We're not just calling out the system. We're actively choosing not to feed the emotional immaturity that drives it. That's how we change the game. One emotionally mature choice at a time. This is Rage Against the Audacity. Your anger at what we're seeing out there is valid. Your boundaries are reasonable, and your decision to disengage from emotional immaturity that's draining you is powerful. If this content resonated with you, please hit like, hit subscribe, and drop a comment and talk to us about how you are going to be dealing with rage bait differently. Until then, remember, the algorithm rewards emotional immaturity. You don't have to participate in that. Protect your peace and protect your energy. We'll see you next time.